Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Russo, and this is the KO Podcast, episode number 20. In this episode, I will be reviewing UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez and Lemos, and of course, I will be previewing UFC 281. That is going to be at Madison Square Garden. Another huge pay-per-view card, a very stacked card. I cannot wait to talk about it. Ring that bell. All right, let's get into this card for UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos. Let's start with some prelims. We had Tamires Vidal getting the TKO over Romana Pascual. We had Jake Hadley getting the submission win over Carlos Condolorio. And moving up in the prelims, we had a brutal knockout. We had a women's strawweight bout. We had Paulina Viviani taking on Julian Fry, and Viviani gets the brutal KO in just 47 seconds of the first round. Definitely one of her best, if not her best, performance in the UFC. That was definitely one of the highlights of the night. Moving on, we had a bantamweight contest. We had Mario Batista taking on Benito Lopez, and Batista gets the first round submission. Moving on, we had a women's flyweight bout. We had Miranda Fear the Maverick taking on Shanna Young, and Miranda Maverick gets the dominant decision victory over Young. Just an impressive performance by her. She should definitely be ranked in the top 15. Congratulations to Miranda Maverick again on the victory. If you did not see our interview that she did with the podcast, go check it out on the YouTube channel, the KO Podcast with Tyler Russo. Moving on to this main card, we had Grant Dawson getting the submission victory over Mark Madsen. We had a flyweight bout. We had Tanjir Umbakov. I apologize if I butchered his last name, against Nate Maness, and Tajir gets the submission victory in the first round. Moving on, we had a featherweight bout. We had Derek Minor taking on Shai Yalan, and Yalan gets the stoppage in the first round. There was a lot of controversy surrounding that fight. Just crazy circumstances, really, if you have been following it on MMA Twitter. But, something with, the betting lines shifted a lot to Yalan, pretty close, to the fight kicking off because Minor was coming in with a knee injury, but I guess that information had been leaked prior to the fight. So, definitely some interesting factors after that fight are going on right now. So definitely I will keep my eyes peeled on that story as it continues to develop over the course of time. Moving on, we had a welterweight co-main event. We had Neil Magny taking on Daniel Rodriguez. I picked Rodriguez to win this fight, but Magny gets the submission victory in the third round. Just another amazing veteran performance by Neil Magny, showing why he has been at the top of the welterweight class for so long. Then moving on, we had a women's strawweight main event. We had Marina Rodriguez taking on Amanda Lemos. I picked Rodriguez to win this fight. I just felt she had the better boxing, but Lemos had something to say about that. In the third round, she stops Marina Rodriguez due to strikes and pretty brutal, knockout. She seemed to hit Rodriguez in the forehead area, and Rodriguez kind of was, after that shot, was just standing there with her hands down and not really defending. So she definitely was out on her feet. Lemos, when she sees that, attacks and finishes Rodriguez with strikes. So a very huge win for Lemos. I think she does need another win or two to get to that title shot, but this is a step in the right direction for Lemos. And Rodriguez, she still is 16-2-2, but if she had won that fight, she probably would have gotten a title shot. but Lemos claims the victory in that one. Now let's move on to the highly anticipated UFC 281 card. All right, live from Madison Square Garden, UFC 281, a stacked card, top to bottom in my opinion. Starting in the early prelims, we got Carlos Unberg. He's part of Izzy's gym, so definitely 7-1 as a light heavyweight. Definitely keep an eye out on him. We have a very, very fun featherweight fight that I think a lot of people are overlooking. We got Mike Trizano taking on Chu Sung Woo. And Sung Woo is such an exciting fighter. Trizano is a tough winner. So, definitely some very, very talented featherweights in that matchup. Another fighter to look out for is Silvia Gomez Suarez. She had a massive knockout in her last victory, so she's definitely got power in her hands. Keep an eye out for her. And finishing the early prelim portion of the card, we have UFC veteran Matt Frevola taking on Ottoman Azatar. I believe that's how you say his last name. Matt Frevola entertaining in and outside of the UFC octagon. If you do not follow him on Twitter, definitely give him a follow. Very entertaining on Twitter. And also his fight style, he's got a high pace, he's got a high gas tank, all action, moving forward all the time. And he's going against an opponent in Azatar who has not fought since 2020. He is 13-0, so I feel like a lot of people have kind of forgotten about him, but let's see how he bounces back after not fighting for almost 3 years now. Moving on to the prelim section of this card. Starting off, we got Andre Petrocki taking on Wellington Turman. Andre Petrocki, a grappling ace, was on a season of The Ultimate Fighter. And then we got Wellington Turman, who I kind of counted out after his 2 back-to-back KO losses, I believe. But he's bounced back really, really well. He hit a rough patch, definitely when he lost to Andrew Sanchez by KO and Bruno Silva by KO. But again, like I said, he's came back. He won a split decision against Sam Alvey, and he had a armbar finish against Kirkonov, I believe. That's how you say his last name. So definitely 2 guys who are on winning streaks. So this should be a fun grappling match. Both guys are well-versed on the ground. Moving on, we got a women's flyweight matchup. We got Erin Blanchfield taking on the one and only Molly McCann. I just feel like Erin Blanchfield, I feel like she's going to win this fight. She's only 23 years old, a 9-1 record, but she does have a really decent amount of UFC experience for just being 23 years old. Her only loss in the UFC was to Miranda Maverick, and I hold Miranda Maverick very, very high in the women's flyweight division, so no shame in that loss. Looking across from her, of course, we have the always entertaining Molly McCann. She is coming off of probably the best, 2 fights of her career. She had a KO spinning back elbow against Coralina. That was in England. Then we fast forward to the summer of 22. She had a TKO finish, spinning back elbow again, and punches. Both of those got her performance of the night, and those were both in England. So, now she takes on, I believe, a very tough opponent in Blanchfield. So this, I'm very, very excited to see this fight. Moving on, we have a light heavyweight bout. We have Dominic Reyes taking on Ryan Spann. Dominic Reyes, we have not seen him since he got brutally KO'd by Yuri Prochazka. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, including that decision loss to John Jones, which a lot of people thought that he won. But, after that, he gets finished by Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title. Then after that, of course, he had his Yuri Prochazka fight. So he has taken a good amount of time off. So I really hope that this rejuvenates him. Ryan Spann, of course, is always a tough opponent for anybody, but I do believe that Spann missed weight just by a little, but he did miss weight, I believe. So Reyes, let's see, if his fighting style changes in any way, because his last 2 fights, he took a lot of damage, and, let's see how his chin holds up, really. That's really what I am looking for this fight. And moving on to the main event of the prelims, we have a banger of a fight. We have Brad Riddell taking on Rakonto Moicano. Both of these guys are so gritty in their fight styles. I would not be surprised if this is a bloody back-and-forth affair for all 15 minutes of it. Both of these guys are tough. There's no backing down from neither of them. So this should be a firework for a fight between these two. Now, after all of those amazing fights, we still have a main card to get to. Kicking it off, we got Dan Hooker and Claudio Pugliese. Dan Hooker obviously coming off of a TKO loss to Aaron Arnold. That was at featherweight, so Hooker is back at lightweight. For me, really, Hooker obviously fan favorite. He's got everybody's respect for, he'll fight anyone at any time. But, really for me, that after that Dustin Poirier fight, I just feel like that fight took so much out of him. After that fight, he got TKO'd by Michael Chandler. He did win a unanimous decision, but then he gets, Islam Makhachev, a submission by Kimura. And, he only takes on the toughest guys, but I think that works against him. Most recently it's worked against him, I'll say that. And, again, Aaron Arnold, TKO, he got finished. So, I don't really know what to expect out of Dan Hooker, but, going across from him, we have Claudio Pugliese, and he's coming off of 2 knee bar finishes in a row. But, if he gets Dan Hooker to the ground, I definitely see him submitting Hooker. If Hooker his best tactic to win this fight is just keeping it standing up, controlling the distance with his reach. He's got to make this fight a dogfight, a gritty war that he knows that he can get through. I don't know if Pugliese has ever really been in a war like Dan Hooker has. So Dan Hooker's got to drag him into that uncomfortable place to really get this finish. Moving on, we have a bittersweet matchup. We got Frankie Edgar taking on Chris Gutierrez. That is at bantamweight. This is expected to be Frankie Edgar's last MMA UFC fight. So salute to a legend, the former UFC lightweight champion. He's been in the UFC for so long. He's got more fight octagon time than anybody in UFC history. So I would love to see him leave with a victory. But he's been KO'd 2 straight fights in brutal fashion. So let's hope that does not happen. Like I said, I would love to see him come out with a victory, in New York. Just that would be a very, very special moment, not just for him, but for all of his fans and everybody who has watched his fights over the years. Moving on, we have an amazing fight right here. We got a lightweight matchup between Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. This matchup I am very, very excited for. Dustin Poirier has not fought since he lost to Charles Oliveira for the UFC lightweight title. Michael Chandler's last fight was that amazing front kick KO of Tony Ferguson. If a big key for Chandler to win this fight is he has to wrestle. He's got to grapple. He's got, an amazing wrestling pedigree. because I just believe if he gets in a stand-up war with Poirier, he's gonna get finished. I mean, he got knocked down by Tony Ferguson in the first round before he got that KO over him. He's been finished by Charles Oliveira. He had a war with Justin Gaethje. So, Chandler, he's taken a lot of punishment. And I just believe Dustin Poirier he's one of the most powerful fighters on the roster. He's definitely one of the most powerful lightweights on the roster. So, if Chandler keeps the stand, and he's going to get finished eventually, in my opinion. Dustin Poirier, he's got amazing boxing. He's always got a great corner behind him at American Top Team. So this is definitely a matchup that you do not want to miss. Now, moving on to the co-main event, we have a women's strawweight fight for the title. We got the champ, Carla Esparza, taking on Weili Zhang, the former champion. The UFC fans have not been so nice to Carla Esparza this week. At the press conference, they booed her, she just, whatever she said, they would boo. I kind of felt bad because, I don't know if it was necessarily all her fault that, that fight with Rose Namajunas was so boring. But I think a lot of people are underestimating Carla Esparza going into this fight. She's got amazing wrestling. She's got, she's very gritty. When she gets you on the ground, she will throw elbows and will bust you open. She's very, very dangerous. And for Esparza, she can't sit on the outside in this fight. She has to get right up in Weili Zhang's face, clinch battle, continuously trying for the takedowns. If she does not get it, try to tire out Weili Zhang. Because if you stand with Weili Zhang, you will get knocked out. Zhang, she is such an explosive fighter. She was the fan favorite this week. I can see why. She's got an amazing stand-up style. She's been in amazing fights. We can't forget her first fight with Joanna Jacek, probably one of, if not the best MMA fight ever. Forget women or men's, but just in general, an amazing fight that will go down in history. That fight was at UFC 248. And then Zhang went on a 2-fight losing streak. She got KO'd by Namajunas, and then they rematched, and she lost a split decision. And then she bounced back against Joanna Jędrzejczyk with a spinning back fist. That was a nasty finish. So there is no doubt why she got this title shot. But hey, all I'm saying is, don't underestimate Esparza. She can make it a gritty fight, and if she gets on top, she will tire out Zhang. Moving on to the highly anticipated main event, middleweight title is on the line. We got Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Pereira. This is a trilogy fight, but those two other fights took place in a different sport years ago. Alex Pereira has a decision victory and a brutal KO victory over Israel Adesanya. For Adesanya to really win this fight, he has to make it a mixed martial arts fight. If he stands in front of Pereira just like Sean Strickland, but don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing Izzy to Sean Strickland, but I'm just saying if he has that same approach, he's just making it a third kickboxing match, and he's already lost 2 of those. So I'm really looking for Izzy to grapple. I'm not saying Izzy's going to take him down, but hey, you got to you got to clinch. You got to do something other than just standing in front of him, fake the takedowns, do something, feint takedowns. I don't see Izzy just standing in front of him. He's going to mix the martial arts, as they say, because he can. Why would he want to have a third kickboxing match when he's already lost the last 2? Izzy, he's got to start out with those low kicks, jabs, but he's eventually got to close that range because he's already fought him twice with just standing. And Pereira is such a scary individual. I'm very excited to see how this fight plays out because I'm not really sure what Izzy is going to do because Izzy is very unpredictable, how he's going to fight. I don't agree with a lot of the criticism that he gets because of his boring fights. I mean, it takes two to dance, I just believe guys are very, very weary of Izzy striking as they should be. He's an elite level striker. So I'm not blaming them for not wanting to go in there, sloppy and engage him. Because if you do that, then you end up like Robert Whittaker the first time they fought. And in that second fight with Robert Whittaker, Izzy had him in a lot of trouble because Whittaker rushed in there to try to close the distance. And that's what happens. And I feel like Pereira, he knows, Izzy, he knows him as a fighter, at least inside and out. But again, like I've been saying, this is an MMA fight, not a kickboxing fight. So I feel like Izzy's going to get this unanimous decision victory. I don't think I can see a stoppage here. I just feel like two guys, both of them are just too technical. But, if Pereira gets tired or gets bored of, getting grappled, he might just push forward and, try to start swinging. Because when he connects, people go to sleep. But me personally, I'm going to take Israel Adesanya by decision. He defends his middleweight championship. And that's how I see UFC 281 ending. And that is going to do it for this episode of the KO Podcast. To stay in touch with the podcast, the Twitter handle is KO Pod with Ty. Also, we have a YouTube channel, The KO Podcast with Tyler Russo. And we have a Instagram page, The KO _podcast. Make sure to follow all of those social media outlets to stay up to date with the podcast and MMA news in general. And I hope to see all of you on MMA Twitter during the fights. I will be tweeting. Don't be afraid to try to connect with me. I'm very active on Twitter, and I cannot wait to see this card. Very hyped about it. I hope you have a safe and blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye.